My guest tonight is the most famous foodie in Hong Kong, Jen Balisi, founder of Indulgent Eats, author of Indulgent Eats at Home, and co-founder of Barkada restaurant in Hong Kong.
Content creator who's purely doing it just for fun. Like, there was no money in it back in the day. That when I got the first email that was like, hey, we're gonna pay you, I was like, wait, what?
But it seems like you rode the wave of Instagram quite well as well. Like,
to be completely honest with you, I was definitely part of a small group of food bloggers who paved the way for other food bloggers who are getting paid. How much are you asking for?
What's your dream?
Ooh, keep getting people to fall in love with Filipino food the way that I really love it.
Jen, welcome to Abnormal.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I was thinking of questions to kick things off, and one thing I've got to ask you, the obvious one, what's your favorite food?
Ooh, I think anyone who has seen my Instagram would know that my number one food is pizza. Literally pinned to my Instagram page, you'll see a video where I ate over 60 slices of pizza in 60 days when I was back in New York City. So, and also it's very versatile. Being Filipino, I've actually created multiple Filipino pizzas as well. So I think it's a nice base that you can play around with.
So if pizza is your favorite meal, what would that be your death row meal? If you had one more meal on Earth?
Okay, if it's death row, you gotta be creative. You can't just have one thing.
Go on,
it's
talk
a
to
meal.
us. Talk to us. I want
it's
the whole meal.
Right?
What's your death row meal?
Okay, if there's no boundaries, I think.
No boundaries.
I would start with like caviar.
Wow. Yeah.
And then
you got to die with the good stuff.
Yeah. And then move on to pizza. And then, or maybe pizza at the end. You don't want to be too full. And then probably maybe like a really, really good dry aged steak with a bottle of wine.
Oh wow, we're going all out here.
Lobster, like a surf and turf.
Yeah.
I feel like you need more than just one thing.
You're gonna die from a coma, I think. After that one.
I'll die from
That's
cholesterol.
a good answer. I'm not sure what mine would be. I mean, following your Instagram, I feel like all the posts on there suddenly become my new favorite meal.
Yeah.
Because of the way it's captured, like how vibrant it is, all the colors. I'm like, oh shit, that looks good.
Yeah.
Like the pepperoni pizza. It's crazy. But all good foods that you've mentioned. So has food always been like your passion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that growing up Filipino, food, just culturally, food is at the center of every occasion. Whether it's a birthday, it's a family party, it's a funeral. There's literally buffet lines of food, even for these sad circumstances. So I think that you're always really surrounded by food, and that's definitely how I grew up. Growing up in New Jersey, my mom immigrated as a nurse. And so she found her community and her fellow Filipino nurses that had also immigrated. And so my childhood really was dinners at home that my parents would cook Filipino food. And then on the weekends, we would hang out with their friends. And it would be literally buffet lines of food at every single even if they were just hanging out. Like, there was always way too much food. I think, and growing up in the U.S. also, you're exposed to a lot of different cuisines.
Lots.
So, I think it's
where
always
in the
been,
U.S. was it? In New Jersey?
In New Jersey, yeah. Just like 30 minutes from New York.
So can you tell us a little bit about your growing up, your background? Sort of, I know where you are today in Hong Kong. I know you went to college in the US.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in the U.S. So my parents are Filipino. It's a kind of a typical American dream story. They worked really hard for my mom to become a nurse and immigrate to the U.S. They had my sister in the Philippines, but then they were able to have me in America. And once you have one kid who is born on American soil, you get the passport, the U.S. citizenship, and then you can then petition the whole family to come over. Awesome. So that was me. Grew up in suburban New Jersey, just like I said, 30 minutes outside of New York. Grew up around lots of Filipinos, even though my town was very diverse. We had a huge population of Filipinos that even the Christmas Mass, they would do a Filipino version of it, even though we were literally in the U.S. And then I went to college at NYU. I did I made my Asian parents proud. I went to business school, undergrad. After graduation, I worked at American Express doing marketing. So I was doing the corporate life for about doing it for about 6 years. I was running all of the mobile marketing for our mobile app at one point. And then at the same time, I was food blogging on the side. Like it wasn't really, in the beginning, it wasn't even Instagram. It was just a food blog because that was the time period. And I think, let's say 2014 or 2015 is when Instagram, like food Instagram became a thing. And I started sharing all of my blog posts to my personal Instagram. And then suddenly strangers were following me on Instagram. I thought it was the weirdest thing. So I created separate food Instagram, and that's kind of how it all came to be.
I was going to say, because your food Instagram, which everyone associates you with, but it is separate from your personal, and your food Instagram is what, like 370,000 people follow you.
Well, at this point, it's also personal. Like,
I was going to say, because it's you on it, right? It's you
me.
doing all the stuff.
Yes, that's where it's funny. Like I did it in the beginning to separate it, but now I literally share like my whole life story on Instagram. So.
But that's also why it's successful as well, because it's not just another food page. Like it's people associate you with that page, and you talk over it, you present, you voice over, you describe the foods. So you are synonymous with your Indulgent Eats Instagram
absolutely.
page.
And I think there's some level of trust that's built in that way. Like people who, especially, I've been blogging since 2011, like forever. And so people who have been following me, even if, there's people who I meet and they're like, oh, I followed you since you were still in New York, which is now over 7 years ago, which is insane. So I think that they've followed that journey the whole time, and they've gotten to know me. So when I recommend something, they trust that, right? They know like, oh, she's not going to steer me wrong. Or they also know that, I generally try to respond to my DMs and comments.
Yeah, you're good.
So,
I DM'd you.
Yeah. So I'll also get feedback. Hey, like I went to this place you recommended, it was great. Or, hey, I tried this thing and it wasn't so great. So I like that people also have the trust that they can then still talk to me. Like I'm still, even though I have all these followers and whatever, like I'm still a normal
You're still
person.
A human being.
I am still a normal person.
Yes. There you go.
I'm still a human, and I think people also will just come up to me on the street and I'll chat with them because again, like I'm just a normal person. I don't see myself as this like celebrity.
You are. I think every friendship group needs a Jen Balisi, because I'm useless, right? When people ask me where should we go to eat, I'm like, I've got no idea, no idea.
Absolutely.
But I've got your Instagram, so I can just go to your Instagram, and so everyone needs a Jen Balisi in their friendship group to follow along. Okay, you mentioned in your background about your making your Asian parents proud and doing that whole journey. I really am interested in that.
Yeah.
Selfishly, from my standpoint, is something I've gone through, not just to make my parents proud, but did the traditional uni route, did business economics at uni. I didn't do the traditional get a job straight outside because I've played sport after that. But a lot of people will be currently or have already done the same route as you did, going to college, going to business school, getting a corporate job. Was that always part of your plan to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that especially when your how much your parents sacrifice, like it's a typical immigrant story. You can't really dig around, they put me through NYU, which is one of the most expensive universities in the US. And so you kind of feel an obligation to provide that return on investment. And also at the time, like, I think now people see this fancy, this flashy Instagram culture, and there's kids now who don't even want to go to college. They want to just go straight, jump ahead, and just become an influencer. But for me, the word influencer didn't even exist in 2011, right? So that was never an option. And I think also, to be completely honest with you, I value my time going to university, being able to go and work in a corporate job, because when, hopefully not too soon, but if all of this blows up, if Instagram is not a viable option, like what are you going to do? Do you have the skill set to be able to pivot and jump into a different career? And I also think that because I had that background, that business background, that's actually what allowed me to make the initial pivot of going from a content creator who is purely doing it just for fun. Like there was no money in it back in the day. That I had no idea that that was even an option. And so when I got the first email that was like, hey, we're going to pay you, I was like, wait, what? But also like, okay, let me put on my corporate girl hat and respond with like a very, let me negotiate on this. Let me read through these contracts. Let me create a proposal let me pitch myself. Let me make a media, what do you call it? Like a media kit. I literally make PowerPoint decks for a living. Let me make
I can do this for myself.
Let me make a PowerPoint deck for myself. So I don't know. For me, I understand that it is this sexy thing that you can jump into. But for me personally, I value that I was able to have it as a side hustle, and still be able to earn a really good salary, get my feet off the ground, living in New York, which is a really expensive city, but have this really fun thing to do on the side. And if it didn't work out, then great, I have my corporate job. But in the case that it did, which happened in this case, I at least have both kind of backgrounds and skills to be able to push forward.
Yeah, I think it's such a wise point you made there. And so many people now want to make that leap straight away as soon as possible. And I mean, I don't know. I can't judge right or wrong if it's right or wrong.
Yeah,
but
I think some people it makes sense.
Yeah.
Some people are just clearly born to create content and they're creating really cool, unique things. But then you have the people who are purely in it for free stuff. And it's just obvious.
It is quite obvious.
Yeah.
And also from your perspective, you're not just an influencer or a content creator, right? You're a business owner.
Yeah.
So you're an author, which we'll touch on as well. You're a restaurant owner. So all these things require a different skill set. It's not just creating content. Your content supplements your businesses, but I mean, I can only imagine, hopefully I get there one day, but I can only imagine the know-how and the skills that you need to have to run your businesses. Yeah. It's not going to come from, it's most likely not going to come from just going from school to, I want to be an influencer, or I can now run a business. Working at American Express for 6 years, was it, did you say? Working at American Express for 6 years, doing marketing and everything in that area probably helps where you're at now, even in terms of like social strategy, marketing, proposals, as you say. I want to, you touched on one thing there. Well, first question, did you ever say to your parents when they were putting you through business school, you're like, I would like to be a content creator?
No, because like I said, it didn't even...
Was there ever any conversation like that maybe this isn't what you want to do full time?
No, because I think, so what's interesting is I think at that point, I actually because I had done a lot of extracurricular things in high school. Like I was on a full AP classes, all the extracurriculars and things in high school. I did, there was an organization where you do like mock business plans and that's cool. Like a marketing based competitions. And so I actually was doing that.
That's probably the stuff that you should be doing at school.
Yeah.
That's like really helpful.
Yeah. So I did that in high school. And so I already kind of knew that I didn't want to do finance. I didn't want to like science. No, not for me. Because most, Filipinos go into nursing. That's just what you do. And I knew from the get I did not want to do that. So I chose a different, like parent-approved career, but
business.
Yeah, but that was still in line with what I wanted, which was to do marketing, which is the more fun and creative side of business, right? So,
did you ever think that you would want to be running your own business?
No, I probably not. I think that, to be honest, especially after I was working at Amex, it's such a good company and they have a really good culture. And a lot of the people I was working with were also mothers who would like literally leave at 5 on the dot and like go to their kids and whatever. So it offered a lot of flexibility. So I kind of saw myself as a lifer there. Even when I started the food blog, I was even looking at jobs in dining because, think about credit card. They have all of those perks.
Yeah,
and
sure.
They do those, especially in the US, they do events where you get to meet like famous chefs and things like that. So I was trying to get into that world. So I was trying to stay in corporate, but find a way to do it in an area where I was passionate. So I think, to be completely honest with you, I think that if we did not move to Hong Kong, if my husband hadn't gotten an opportunity to, relocate us to Hong Kong, I probably could have just stayed at Amex doing both. Maybe probably half-assing both. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Half-assing both. But I could have easily kept going and found, pivoted and found a job that was a little bit more related to food and events and things like that.
I mean, it seems like if the work-life balance was there at Amex, like as you say, if you could leave at 5, that gives you a good chunk of the day to then work on your passion project.
Exactly.
And build that to a certain stage.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask you about is, you mentioned when you first got that email about a brand wanting to pay you to create content for them and work with them. Talk me through how you felt during that moment and what that process looked like.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that, I mean, it started from even the first free thing that I got, right? I was like, oh, you can get stuff for free? Like, what? And then it started from free, like a free cake or something. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. To like, hey, we'll give you a $50, gift card to go to a restaurant. To, hey, we're going to pay you like $1,000 US.
And was this whilst you were doing
what?
the food blog or Instagram
this was
days?
Instagram. This was
okay.
Instagram.
Did anything start during the food blog days, or was that kind of just building?
Yeah, no. The food blog was, again, like it was purely for fun. Instagram I don't even think it existed when I started.
But it was when Instagram started and you started on Instagram.
Yes.
That's when these things started to roll.
That's when these opportunities really started. And I started getting invited to like event, think about when a new restaurant opens or something like that, I would get invited to those things. And then eventually, I don't even remember what the first brand was that paid me, but yeah, eventually it would turn into not just a free meal, but hey, we want to pay you to create a specific piece of content based on this. So I think it was interesting because, again, coming from my marketing background, I would create pitches for, our agency.
Yes.
So it was kind of then seeing it.
I'm on the other side now.
I'm on the other side, exactly.
I'm part of the influencer marketing program.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that also helped because I was like, oh, okay, deliverables. Like I understand what all of these things are, right? So it was definitely a shock, and I was definitely like, whoa, like there's money in this. This is insane. And it wasn't until I think there was a few more. And I also didn't start getting paid things. Again, this is before. The world is completely different now. But I think it wasn't until I had like 50,000 followers that I started getting, brand deals and money. Whereas I think now, because of the way the culture is, you can be a micro influencer and get paid for stuff, right? If you are in the right niche. So I think it just depends on that. But at the time, that's kind of how it worked.
It seems like, I say luck, but you smashed it because you were doing the food blog anyway. So it's obviously your passion. It has been a lot of your life. But it seems like you rode the wave of Instagram quite well as well. Like you caught that wave.
For sure. And
where brands started to look into it as a serious way of marketing.
Yeah. And to be completely honest with you, I was definitely part of a small group of food bloggers who kind of paved the way for other food bloggers who are getting paid. Because there was, especially in New York, there were like 20 of us at the time who would all basically hang out because we met through Instagram because we would all get invited to these events. And then there'd be points where, hey, we started getting paid. It's like, hey, like, how much are you asking for? Because
let's collude on this deal.
Yeah, literally, because there was no guidelines. There's still not. There's some guidelines now, but it's all still very guessing. It's a guessing game.
So what's your budget?
Yeah.
What's your rate card? Well, what's your budget?
Yeah, exactly. So at the time, we were very much like dictating, hey, like how much should we ask for? How much are you asking for? What do we ask for? Because this was a completely new market. So
that's crazy. That's such a cool story. And I think also food and drinks were, I don't know, I'm not an expert in this, but they seem to be one of the first topics or genres on Instagram and socials that did blow up because
absolutely.
they're so visual, right? And they're so relatable to everyone.
Food.
Exactly.
Yeah, everyone loves food.
So that's
like, even though people didn't live in New York, they would see, I'd literally post a slice of pizza and it would literally get 10,000 likes. It was crazy. I would literally just post a slice of pizza, get 10,000 likes. So it's also insane how much it's changed.
And the New York food scene.
Yeah.
How does that compare to other places in the world?
New York, I think, is now, I would say that a lot of the big cities function the same, where there's constantly new restaurants opening. Depending on the city, there is a desire for both the new modern things as well as keeping, supporting the local, homegrown, immigrant-owned, 100-year-old institutions. I think that most of the cities in the world have that because most of the cities have rich histories, right? So I think New York is no different, and you see that in the content that will go viral. It's like, oh, this place has been run. This guy is still doing the same thing for however long. So, but then you also have these constant new openings, and if anything, New York is subject to a lot of very subject to like the gimmicks and they start a lot of those viral trends. Like I remember when it was like there was sushi donuts or something at one point. There was ramen burgers. Like all of that started in New York. Or rainbow bagels. All of these things kind of started, good and bad, started in New York. So.
Do you must have your finger on the pulse of all these food trends?
I try to be, yeah. Although now with TikTok, it's like a whole other game because I'm not on TikTok.
Is that because of
partially because it's not here,
yeah.
And then also even when it was not restricted, I was just like, this is too much. This is too much.
Too many stimulus.
I already have to deal with all the Instagram stuff. Like this is too much. So now I just kind of take my content and post it, and then I
so
walk away.
You do post on TikTok?
I do post on TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your following like on TikTok compared to Instagram?
It's small. It's like 30,000.
Okay, so it's not nothing.
It's not nothing, yeah. But the crazy thing about TikTok is that something can just blow up.
Yeah.
Right? So like on average, I'd say my things get, 2,000 views. And then I have things that have 7 million
out of nowhere.
views. Yeah.
And is it normally the same content that does well across platforms?
No, it's completely different. Completely, random.
That's a mind fucking.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
So in terms of like platforms, like Instagram's your main platform?
Instagram's my main platform.
I know you're on YouTube as well.
Yeah. YouTube is like, man, it is a tough thing to crack. It's I've been on YouTube for years at this point, but I think I only have like 4,000 subscribers. So it's its own unique thing.
Again, that's not nothing.
It's not nothing. Yeah. At least I get some money out of it. But I'm definitely trying to grow it and see how I can grow it. But it's just different. So I haven't cracked that one yet. But the good thing is that I also have my blog, which is entirely, my own content. I don't have to worry about some almighty algorithm or anything like that. So at the end of the day, I at least still always have my own content, and that actually gets a good amount of volume to it.
How many subscribers or do you call them subscribers or to your blog? How many people subbed up to your blog?
I should.
Do you have like
I don't
an email
have a
list
newsletter,
or something?
but I can see like the monthly views and
has that just been like
hits.
steady away over the years?
Yeah. And I think I get like 100,000 like views coming in a month or something like that. So
that's really cool. Yeah. And I wanted to touch on the blog because obviously it's the first thing you started in 2011, I believe, is when you started, and it's just been going and compounding over these years.
Yeah.
You're obviously passionate about food and that's your niche, but you also have like travel, right? You do Hong Kong stuff and in your blog. What's if for content creators out there looking to build an audience like myself, would you recommend opening like a newsletter or a blog style of content for growing an audience?
Yeah, and I think it's more about like what are your goals, Because for me, I think that my goal with what I do is kind of my mission, if you will. is that I feel like I generally try to explore the world and lead a very fulfilled life. And my goal is to inspire other people to do the same, or at the very least, if they're going to a destination, that they're having great meals and like experiencing these amazing activities and things that you can do in a place. Because I think that's like, I hear, you always hear someone come back from a place like, it was okay. Like, oh, I didn't really like the restaurants that we went to or whatever. So my goal has always been that whatever, I can do to enrich the people who I know or the people I don't know, that everyone is kind of experiencing the world in the way that I do. And so for me, the blog allows me to have a place where all of my recommendations and those experiences are in a permanent place. Because I think that, Instagram and social media, it's changed slightly now. I think that content has a bit of a longer lifespan now, because now you can, it does feed into Google search. You can get some of those results. But for the most part, it's posted and it dies, right? Like people don't see it again after 24 hours, 48 hours. Whereas like a blog, that lives forever. You can always send someone the link to your guide, or someone can always search for something and it'll show up. So I think for me, it feels a bit more permanent. And also I can, I think it's just easier to read a list versus having to sit through a 60-second reel again. Like,
finally, there it is.
What's that part that that one thing that I need, right? That I want to know, or, I missed that one, especially now because reels are like 1 second clips. It's like, oh gosh, like what was that 1 second thing? And you have to sit through the whole thing. So I think for me, I like that I have both. I can create a short form reel that gives you the full scope, but then it drives you to the guide that you can refer to at any time.
Do you think your blog is more personal than your short form content?
Interesting. No, actually. I think that I do the blog slightly more informational, because I feel like if you're there, you're like,
you want the info.
Yeah,
you don't want to piss
info
around with Jen's feelings on everything. It's like, I want to know where to go.
I think it depends. Like the old guard of food blogging, some of the blogs that I love and that I was inspired to create a blog from, the first you have to scroll through this whole like life story about how their day was and like all this stuff, because like they don't have Instagram stories, right? That's true. Instagram stories is what you use to like. That's for. That's for. But before, like the blog, that's how you kind of connect. That's how you connected with people. That's what got people to buy into it. But I don't do that, I guess, because I do that through Instagram
social media. You don't need that. Yeah. So when you're creating your blogs, like you just did one on Seoul, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was just in Seoul this weekend. Yeah.
Is that when you're going to Seoul, in your head, are you thinking, right, I'm going to be writing a blog on this? And so all your trip is planned out of restaurants you want to go to, cafes you want to go to, things you want to do. Is there any like collaboration with those places that you go to, or is it all you finding out where to go, picking the spots?
I think it depends. Like I have done some media trips, so like working with a tourism board where in some cases they set an itinerary for you. In other cases, they allow you to pick an itinerary and they just approve it. I haven't done those in a while, to be honest with you. Lately, I've been just doing my own trips and planning out the itineraries. And it's not always with the goal of, hey, I'm going to create this like content. Sometimes it's just like a personal trip. It's a friend's wedding. It's whatever it might be. Like we were actually in Seoul for my husband's coworker's wedding. So that was the reason. But I was like, hey, I'm going to all these places. Like, let me take note of the places. And again, I'm not doing it in a thing of, it's not always like like this is this really cool spot and I need to like research it and check it. In some cases it is. In some cases I am very much like I've researched this place and I have an idea in mind of how I'm going to, create content around it. And then in other cases, it's just I literally stumbled upon, like one of the places in my guide, we literally tried to go to a different restaurant. It had an hour and a half wait. We just started walking around, found this other restaurant. We're like, this looks cool, and ate there and fell in love with it, called Pig Bar in Seoul. And it's literally like down an alleyway. And that's like the one place that I like push
Yeah, I love
for
that.
people, because it just is,
a great
it was
story
great.
as well.
Yeah. And we talked to the owner, and, it was a very genuine, like, it's truly just stumbled upon this thing, but I want to share it with people.
And I'm sure people appreciate that as well, especially since they've got the relationship with you now.
Yeah.
You've been doing it since 2011. Are you allowed to be truly honest with your reviews when you review restaurants and places?
Yes and no. I think that if a restaurant has invited me in, and it didn't go well, I usually just don't post about it, and I will tell the restaurant directly the reasons why I don't feel comfortable posting. Because especially now, I'm literally a restaurant owner. I value that as well. Whether you're a content creator or you're just an everyday person, I think that one of the things that people don't realize, or that I would recommend to everyone, is that if you're having a bad experience at a restaurant, tell them in the exact moment, because the goal of a restaurant is that we are providing you with a good experience. And I think for the most part, most restaurants care, and they want you to leave the door being happy. So anything we can do to make that experience great. Like, for example, if you came to Barkada and something was too salty, tell us. We'll fix it. We'll fix it for you, because everyone's salt tolerances is different, right? We won't know that, and then someone afterward will be like, 1 star, food was too salty, and it's like, tell us. We would have fixed it. We would have happily course corrected. But now that 1 star is gonna haunt us forever. Yes. On Google reviews or on whatever, and it'll dissuade someone from coming to us. Where actually, no, we would have happily provided you with a really great experience, right? We would have sent you a shot. We would have comped your
spoke to you, or
spoken to you. We would comped your dessert. And most restaurants are like that, because at the end of the day, we want you to have a really good experience. And also, the restaurant business is really freaking hard. We don't want bad reviews, period. That's just how it is. And so when you get these, I would say you get a lot of unfair reviews, where we could have easily done everything in our power to make sure that you actually had a good time, and hopefully don't leave that bad review, because we want to, this industry is really tough. You have to do everything to keep afloat. So anything that we can get to get those people who are true supporters, and also people who, hey, you know what, I appreciated that, it's, there's bound to be issues. It's a human run business. There's going to be some inconsistency.
Like
we try to be, we try to be as consistent as possible, but everyone makes mistakes every so often. Thankfully, it doesn't really happen that often. It doesn't really happen a lot. It doesn't. But when it does, we want to do what we can to make sure that the customer has a really good experience. And we'll come back, be like, hey, that was great. I really appreciated that they did that. I'm willing to come back and give them another chance.
I think it's hard from the customer perspective as well, because culturally, I've traditionally always found it hard to give feedback to a restaurant. I'm British, right? So we're ridiculously polite in the most inconvenient times.
Yeah.
Like, someone could be stamping on my face and I'll tell them thank you. That's just the way we're brought up.
Yeah.
I now have a French wife, and we go to restaurants all the time. So that's shifted, because in France it's the opposite. You tell them.
Yeah.
If you have a slightly unpleasant experience, you'll tell the waiter, waitress, oh, actually this was slightly off. Can you tell the chef?
Yeah.
And that's the culture. They're used to giving that feedback.
Yeah.
So is there a best practice from a customer perspective to give feedback to restaurants?
Yeah, I would say that the moment you start eating a dish and something is wrong, tell them. Especially if it's something that's like very clearly wrong, like something's undercooked, something's salty, like what else would be? I think it's clear if it's the wrong order, like whatever it is, do it right away so that they can immediately rectify that. And let's say you are in a situation where, I feel uncomfortable, send an email directly to the restaurant about what went wrong. Don't go straight to a review. Don't go straight to review. I know you want to do it. The restaurant, like I think that, I don't know, for me, it's just better karma to support a place because like, everyone makes mistakes. That's the point. Like everyone makes mistakes in their job. Like you're gonna fault them like 100%.
You want to give that person a chance to make up for their mistakes.
If they don't make up for it,
then you can leave the review.
Yes.
Then you can get salty.
Then you can get salty. But if they've done everything in their power to rectify the situation, then I think that it's bad karma to leave bad reviews, which is why from an Instagram perspective, I generally don't do it unless it's like I said, or let's say it's a place that's like super duper famous and like everyone raves about it and it's like just the worst experience. That's a case where I think that restaurant's doing just fine.
So you can say
you can say something just to your friends, right? But I think that for the bulk of restaurants, they're not in a situation where everything's fine and dandy and every single supporter, every single word of mouth, sharing, Instagram story, positive review really helps and makes a difference because it's a hugely saturated industry. You have to stay top of mind constantly. That's honestly why that's even why I'm on this podcast because that's also why I'm on this podcast because one, I think it's a cool premise, but also from a ulterior motive perspective, I do want to make sure that Barkada is top of mind and that people know about it. Like I even have friends because Hong Kong has so many restaurants, right? I have friends who have still not eaten at my restaurant, and it's like, what are you waiting for? It's right there. And I think that people are like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. They're just waiting for a moment, or they're waiting for their one friend who they said they would go with. Like, just make the plan. If there's a place that you truly love, or that you've been dying to try, you've been wanting to try, just like make the plan and go. Every restaurant will truly appreciate it.
And are these struggles that you've described there, are these things that you've only learned since being a restaurant owner? Or have you always been aware of this dynamic?
I have always been aware of it. I think that as a content creator who has a lot of relationships with chefs, I've literally stood in hot kitchens, like filming food and stuff, right? I'm very aware of the ins and outs of it, and I was very aware of how difficult it would be. And then when you're in it, it's even more difficult.
Nothing can
I
compare.
will say nothing can compare because I think you know the general issues of things, but then when it's a Friday night and your fryer breaks, you're like, oh,
they didn't teach me this in business school.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that one. So yeah, I think that there's these other things that you just can't foresee, and that's again another thing, right? Like, you never know what's going on in the background. Like, you can't help if everyone has tech issues in work or in whatever, and when it happens with a restaurant, like sometimes it's detrimental to a service, but you do everything in your power to keep customers happy. So
I want to talk more about Barkada, your restaurant, because as I said to you before the podcast, I find it super interesting, your whole story from Amex, or, growing up in the US to working at Amex, to starting your blog, to content creator, to the blow up of Instagram, author, we'll get to that, and now a restaurant owner.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell me sort of what your thought process was going into this. Was this always the plan to be a restaurant owner? Has this been a dream of yours? I want to know how it sort of came about.
Yeah, I think it's always kind of been a dream, but a pipe dream. Like I never thought it would ever be real. I think how I mentioned how I did some things in high school around like business plans. I literally wrote a business plan for a Southeast Asian
That's so cool.
restaurant.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, and at the time it was Southeast Asian because I never thought that you could just open a place that was just Filipino food. You would have to lump it in with Thai,
something else,
something else that people know. But I've always been really passionate about promoting Filipino food, even before the restaurant, even when I just had the blog. One of my first recipes that I wrote on the blog was for a healthy version of tosilog, which is like garlic rice with an egg and marinated chicken in like a sweet garlicky sauce, which we serve actually at Barkada. Little plug. And so I've always been really passionate about it. And also because I think I would encounter a lot of people who had never had Filipino food. And I was like, what do you mean you've never had Filipino food? Especially coming to Hong Kong, that was the most shocking, I think. Either how many people had never had it or how many people thought they didn't like it. And considering how many people, there's literally the largest ethnic minority in Hong Kong are Filipinos, you know. There's a huge community. The Philippines is literally a 1 hour flight away to Manila. It's super close. People travel around the Philippines. So I think for me, especially when I moved here, there were some Filipino restaurants, but they were very catered to Filipinos. They were more like mom and pop kind of places. They wouldn't be a place that you can find like a nice cocktail. They wouldn't be a place that maybe you wouldn't want to bring your colleagues, you know? And so I always kind of had that dream. And when I came out with the cookbook, I started doing some pop-ups. And I just thought, okay, I'll just do pop-ups. Like that's the way that I promote Filipino.
Pop-ups for Filipino food.
Yeah, pop-ups from like my own recipes, like working with different restaurants and sharing, you know, those recipes.
And what was the feedback like from the pop-ups?
Oh, great. Like people loved it.
Was that kind of your testing, like market testing?
It was, yeah. And that's honestly how the restaurant came to be. So I had done a few pop-ups. Like I did one with Shady Acres. I did a couple at some places that are no longer open, but there was always at least one Filipino dish that we would do for the pop-up. And then I did a series of pop-ups with Alvy's, again, like RIP. And this is why you have to support the places that you like, because places are you never know when things are going to close. And so we did a almost month-long pop-up where we did a Filipino pizza. So we serve a dish. Well, at the time, I had a dish called sizzling sisig. So it's traditionally, it's like the pork face and ears. It's a way, you know, Filipino food, it's very resourceful. You use the whole animal. And so you chop up all the pig face parts with soy sauce and calamansi and usually chicken liver. And you serve it in this sizzling skillet. And it's a very, like, it's drunk food. Like, that's how it traditionally is. And so I took all those ingredients, but used pork belly because it's a bit more accessible, and threw it on a pizza. And we served it at Alvy's, and it was a huge hit. And that's the point where SCMP had written an article that included my pop-up in it. I think it was like something about Hong Kong's rising culinary stars or something like that. And the CEO of Singular Concepts, which is the restaurant group that Barkada is part of, saw the article and was like, hey, does anyone know this? Doesn't anyone know this girl?
That's awesome.
And I knew some of the people who worked in the group from my content creation experience. So they reached out, and even when they reached out, they're like, hey, we want to do a collaboration with you. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, we want to do a pop-up?
Yeah,
and they're
like a reel?
They're like, no. Like, we have this space in the heart of Central, right underneath the escalator, and that's open to the street, you know, like, do you want to open a restaurant? And I was like, whoa. Like, I always thought about it, and I actually even had a Instagram handle saved for the name that I wanted to use for it. But I always thought I would just do pop-ups. I never thought it would be a restaurant. And so when they approached me about it, I was like, okay, let me create a pitch. Let me pull together like what dishes I think would work for a restaurant. And yeah, that's kind of how it all happened.
What was your name that you had?
Barkada.
So that was your...
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I had it saved. Yeah. Because Barkada.
What does it mean?
So Barkada means your group of friends in Filipino,
cool.
in Tagalog. And the reason I had it saved is that there was a business in Washington, D.C. that opened called Barkada, but it was a wine bar owned by non-Filipinos. And it was a huge uproar of like, and even for me, I was like, how can you know, because any Filipino, if you see the name Barkada, you're like, oh, cool, it's Filipino, let me go in. And then you're like, oh, surprise, it's like meat and cheese and wine.
Oh, gosh.
It's charcuterie boards. Like, what a bait and switch, right? So I was like, okay, you know, if I opened a place called Barkada, it would be, you know, what I envision, which is a place that you can bring your Barkada to Barkada. It's a place that welcomes everyone. You know, for us, what we do is that we have a very diverse, like it still has a lot of the traditional flavors. So some of our dishes are very traditional, And then we also have some dishes that, toe the lines that are a little bit more fusion. But we have both because we want you to experience those authentic flavors, but we also want people to see, even if you're Filipino, like, hey, this is something you've never had before, right? And I think that's what makes food fun, is that you can blur those lines. And I think that, personally, I think that's the direction that food goes in. And it also is a way to connect with people, right? They're like, oh, like, I love tacos, but we have a Filipino version of a taco, right? And so anything you can do to break those barriers, in my view, like anything you can do to make it easier for someone to get their foot in the door and try the food is a win. Because most of the people who are coming, like a lot of people they don't even know what calamansi is. I don't know if you know what that is. Yeah, so it's a Filipino citrus that's it's like this big. It's like the size of a coin. And it has the combined flavor of a lemon, lime, and an orange. So it's like the best citrus, in my opinion. And so we use it throughout our menu. And so for us, it's like we're at stage one. We're just trying to get people in. We're trying to give them the basic education. Just let them even understand, hey, like, what this is adobo. Like, this is the national dish of the Philippines. But we serve it as popcorn chicken, right? So
it's more relatable.
Yeah, or it's just like easy, right? Even if someone has never heard of Filipino food before, they can come in, they see adobo popcorn chicken, and they taste it. They're like, ooh, I like adobo. Even if they don't know what adobo really is, they like the flavor of adobo, which is soy, vinegar, and garlic. It's like, ooh, so now in the future, if they're like, hey, I want more adobo, or they try our sisig, which we do with pork belly. Again, like just anything to get people to try it. Oh, I like sisig. Hey, okay, if you like our version of sisig, now we like part of the goal as well is to uplift the whole Filipino community and drive business, not just to us, but to all the Filipino restaurants in Hong Kong. And so if they like what we do, hey, why don't you go check out Badania's in Jordan for the real, like, full authentic experience run by, an auntie and uncle, right? So, and they do the version of sisig that's with the whole pig face. So I think for us, it's, that's always been the goal, is to really uplift the Filipino community and be in the center of Central, a place where Filipinos can be proud to sit in this really beautiful restaurant with their colleagues and share their cuisine.
I think it sounds a great vision. And I mean, again, extremely ignorant from myself, but when you say Filipino food, it doesn't hold the same weight as like Thai food, Vietnamese food.
Yeah.
Because it's, I don't know, in my head, those cuisines are such famous cuisines.
Yeah.
And Filipino food might be that standard, but I just don't know it yet.
Yeah. It's not there yet, and it's getting there. It's starting to get there. People are starting to know what lumpia, adobo, sisig, like they're starting to know what these things are. And so our goal at Barkada is to introduce people to these dishes, and to get them to fall in love with it, and that they're like, oh yeah, like, so that they know that anytime they go, oh, I love kare-kare, which is a peanut stew. Like, oh, I love kare-kare. Like the same way that you'd be like, oh, I love, I don't know, like pad kimao or something, right? Yeah.
And so you told us the story of how this restaurant came to be. I'm still a bit confused. So what's your role in the restaurant? Because you got approached to be like, do you want to start a restaurant?
Yeah.
So are you then like co-founders and you went into this joint venture together?
Yes. Yeah. So it's part of Singular Concepts. So thankfully, I have someone who helps with like operations, HR. Because again, like all of these things I don't really know what I'm doing with any of these things.
You're learning.
I've been learning as I go. And so the restaurant has definitely been that case. Like I don't know how to come up with a roster of staff. So the group kind of handles the accounting, the suppliers and those things. And it's really my concept. So I came up with the concept. We collaborated on the branding, on graphics, on the design. I kind of handpicked a lot of the artwork and things that you see in the restaurant.
Were doing before anyway, that you have done previously with Amex or your content. Like your content is a living proof of, you're very good at social media strategy, go-to-market strategy, marketing.
Yeah.
You just got to replicate that for a brand new restaurant.
Exactly. So that's kind of what my role is, and also like coming up with the menu. A lot of the recipes are my own, or if it's not my own recipe, I work really closely with my chef who's Filipino to come up with like how we want the dish to be, because everyone makes Filipino. Even one dish can be made 100 different ways. So like, how do we want to make it? What ingredients are we using? What's the techniques that we're using? So collaborating with him on how we're doing that. So doing the menu, and then any fun events, any collaborations. Also, I have a dog. Our restaurant's dog friendly, so I also plan all of our dog events, which is like the best part of it for sure. Like we just did a Halloween dog costume contest, which was super cute, and we'll probably do some like a lot of fun Christmas.
That's so Hong Kong, isn't it? Like everyone dresses up their dogs.
Yeah. So it's fun. So like even like we have Christmas coming up, which like Filipinos love Christmas. So the whole restaurant, that's the same thing of like I ordered every single decoration that you see that you're gonna see in the restaurant.
When does your restaurant turn Christmassy? Because I'm walking
December
past
1.
shops. I say, okay,
December 1. Maybe even like November.
I was going to say, because I'm walking
like,
past shops now,
yeah,
and there's Christmas music playing, there's Christmas trees out. As soon as that Halloween marker goes, it's Christmas time.
We might push it up because we have all the decorations. Maybe like last week of November. Actually, it's probably easy because I think December 1's on a weekend, so it'd be easier to decorate during the week.
Rinse that weekend.
Yeah. I think we want it to be ready, but we also do like a Christmas karaoke brunch.
Ooh, very cool.
Which is fun because then you do free flow. Yes. And then start singing Christmas carols, and like sing Mariah Carey. So
are your drinks menu Filipino as well?
It is, yeah. So we have a lot of really great cocktails. So our beverage director is like the beverage director for the whole group. So he runs Tel Camellia, which is a really great bar in Hong Kong. And so he helped in terms of refining some of the cocktails on the menu. So we have, like the cocktails we have like our signature drink, the Barkada sour. It's like a pandan and guava gin that we make ourselves, like infuse ourselves with.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it's so good with like a calamansi zest. So it's like bright and citrusy and it's like really good.
It sounds very tempting for a Christmas free flow. I want to know how much of your time gets spent on the restaurant versus everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, it
sounds like a full-time job.
It constantly, I basically have 2 full-time jobs. And the second job is like a 24/7 job. The restaurant one's maybe like a day, like nighttime, like whatever job.
Are you there every day?
No. So in the beginning, when we first opened, I was there every single day. Now I'm not there doing day-to-day stuff. I focus on all of the outward facing things. So I do the menu stuff. So with Christmas coming up, we are also right now, we're literally going to launch a minor like menu revamp. So we're about to launch some new menu items. So that's taking up a lot of my time because we're doing all the R&D, all of the testing of the dishes, costing. So working really closely with my chef.
Food testing sounds really fun though.
It is fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's stressful when you own the restaurant.
It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of resources. But it is fun to come up with new dishes. So I'm really excited for that. Like one of the dishes we're going to introduce is it's called dinuguan. So it's a pork blood stew so it's like for some people it can be scary.
Sounds scary.
It sounds scary. Even when you're a kid.
Sell it to me.
When you're a kid, your parents literally tell you it's chocolate meat to get you to like eat it, even though it tastes nothing like chocolate. It tastes nothing like chocolate. But it's a super rich. So do you like Thai boat noodles?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you know what makes Thai boat noodles good?
No.
Pork blood. That's the secret.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
And that's the thing that people don't realize. Like the reason it's that color, that really dark color, is because
I also like black pudding in the UK. So
exactly.
I'm not too afraid of blood. I know what it can make.
That people like when they get over the fact like, oh, blood, but actually, oh wait, all these things that I really like have blood in it, and it's cooked with vinegar and chilies, and it's super comforting and super good.
It's funny, isn't it, when people get funny about blood, because you give me a ribeye and it's bleeding. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Give me that blood. Give
me that cow that's still moving.
Yeah, literally. I want it blue.
So my goal is to get people to fall in love with dinuguan.
So when's this going live, the new menu?
Hopefully the next 2 weeks.
Okay, cool.
There's extraneous. You have to like print the menus, like finalize things. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks.
Or
maybe by the time, I don't know how long this takes.
Yeah, by the time this goes live, sell it.
Hey, come to Barkada, new menu.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so we mentioned earlier about a lot of things, but growing up in US, And then you mentioned about your husband having an opportunity to move to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Is that what brought you over here? And when was that? Can you just tell us about that move from the US to Hong Kong?
Yeah, we moved in 2017. He basically got, it takes a while to get your visa, right? So I think that he got the offer in March of 2017, and then I moved here September 2017. So it took a while. Completely honestly, it was that one, we had friends who were already in Hong Kong, and we'd see they're always on a freaking boat. We're like, what is this life? And at the time, we were living in New York, and Trump had just become president.
And he's just become president.
Yeah, and I'm really glad we're in Hong Kong. So we were ready to leave. We had been in New York for like 10 years. We thought we were going to be lifers there, but once he got the job offer, and we had traveled, we had been to like Japan, and we had traveled in other parts of Asia. So we knew we kind of just wanted to explore more of Asia, and Hong Kong allows you to do that.
And I mean, the food scene in Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's great.
And compared to New York.
I think it functions in a lot of the same way I mentioned before. Luckily, you can get almost every cuisine here.
What's missing?
Caribbean food. So that's one where every time I go back to New York, I will get Caribbean food. The pizza, thank God, has gotten a lot better in Hong Kong.
Where should I go for pizza in Hong Kong?
Okay, well for me, so Fiata is amazing.
Okay.
But that's like Italian style, which you can get like Italian style pizza, like Neapolitan pizza is always good here because there are people who came straight from Italy who live here. But New York pizza for me, like that is.
Yeah, I want the pizza that's on your Instagram. That's like with the crunchy pepperoni on top.
Yeah. So
for
like the New York style pizza, either Brooklyn, which it's like Brooklyn without the O's.
Okay.
Barklyn, or Sonny's are kind of like the New York style.
So this is why you need a friend like
pizza
Jen.
Places. Yeah. So those are like both like good. But I mean it's still not 100% to what New York is. So which is why whenever I go back to New York, I literally stuff my face with pizza.
Is there anything?
Oh, and bagels. Oh, bagels.
You just answered my next question. Is there anything else about New York that you miss food-wise?
Yeah, bagels.
Just bagels.
Bagels. Yeah, we OD on bagels also when we go to New York.
Bagels, pizza, Caribbean food.
Yes.
Sounds like a hell of a holiday.
Yeah. I mean, we get other food as well. Funny enough, I get a lot of like Chinese food and Asian food because I just love it's just so good.
It is so good.
It's so good. And also I think in New York they do a lot of things differently, like every restaurant is, especially the new generation, the younger generation, everyone's putting their own unique twist on things. And so you see that in New York where they are paying homage to the originals, but putting, modern twists on things.
And portion sizes. Are they always bigger in the US than Hong Kong?
It depends on the restaurant. I'd say New York is probably pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, New York is freaking expensive right now. I see a load of content online about how expensive it is to live in New York, rents, living expenses. A cocktail before,
how much?
Because you have to pay tax and tip, right?
Oh.
Okay, before tax and tip, it's like I can't math in my head. Like 190 honky. Before tax and tip.
Whereas, so we're talking after tax and tip.
200, over 200. Oh, which I never pay that for a cocktail in Hong Kong.
That's a meal.
You would never pay that for maybe in like a hotel bar that's like.
Well, I went to Koa the other week because we just had Jay on the owner of
I just
Koa.
saw him today.
Awesome, lovely guy, love him.
Yeah.
And it's like $120 a cocktail in there, and they were best bar in Asia 3 years in a row.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you can get amazing cocktails in Hong Kong for reasonable prices. And that's no longer the case in New York, sadly.
That kills me a bit. I love going out for food and drinks, but there is that cheap part of me where I'm like, I don't want to be spending.
I'll still do it, but I'm like, oh my God, this is expensive.
Don't check the bank account the next morning. Okay, so if someone was visiting Hong Kong, and you could only recommend one restaurant to go that isn't yours.
Oh, good. That isn't yours.
That isn't yours.
Barkada.
Yeah. Obviously, we'd say Barkada.
Mine. One restaurant. I think for like the true Hong Kong experience, I would say it doesn't matter which one, but if you can take a boat, take a ferry to another island and go to a local seafood restaurant, that I think is the quintessential Hong Kong food experience. And that's something that you can't get anywhere else, right? And there's other restaurants where maybe you can get the crab with the garlic, and you can get scallops with vermicelli and garlic and things like that. But you're not going to be able to like get on this little sampan boat or whatever it is, or sit out on a pier looking at this beautiful water view, while you're digging down into some calamari and salt and pepper squid and all of that, and sweet and sour pork.
I'm hungry.
I know. I'm making myself hungry.
This is the bad conversation we're having before dinner time.
Yeah, so I think that experience, I think, is quintessential Hong Kong.
Do you have quite a few friends who have come and visit you, friends and family?
Yeah, thankfully. Actually, my parents are literally coming next week. So
exciting.
I'm going to take them to get seafood.
That's awesome. And all the other restaurants that you have.
Yeah. There's so many.
You would be the best tour guide for Hong Kong, I think.
Yeah.
Regardless of anything you do outside of food and F&B.
Yeah.
If you can show people around Hong Kong, a city.
Yeah.
With good food.
Yeah.
Like that's
I actually used to do tours. I might pick
in Hong
it up.
Kong.
Yeah. I had followers who, I guess if anyone's ever coming to Hong Kong, you can hit me up. If my schedule allows it, I've done like private tours for my followers, and I've taken them to some of my favorite places. And I think it's just cool because, like, for me, social media and Instagram, it's you're just talking to this like mythical person, basically, right? And so when you get to actually meet someone in person and again, like I said, I think of myself as just a regular person. And so people who they're like, oh my God, I'm like fangirling right now. Whenever I'm like, oh, like it's okay. Like let's just hang out. Like you booked time with me. Like let me show you why I love Hong Kong so much. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to forget about this. I want to talk about your book.
Yeah.
Indulgent Eats at Home.
Yeah.
Launched in 2021.
Yeah, it's my pandemic baby.
Is that what spurred the idea?
That is, so I mean, a publisher had reached out to me about if I ever wanted to write a cookbook. And to be honest, I don't think I would have ever done it except for the fact that we were locked down, right? We weren't traveling. It's so much work. I wrote the entire thing. I shot all the photos. And you have to test all the recipes, and it's so labor intensive. I don't know how I would have done it if it was normal life, because you're traveling on the weekends, and there's day to day, and I think that it was just a perfect timing to be able to create the cookbook. And it has a lot of Filipino recipes because, again, I wanted to really introduce the cuisine to people. But it also has just a lot of basically all my favorite foods. I wanted to create my own versions of different things, mash up different foods. And what was cool about that is when it came out, we did a pop-up at Shady Acres, which is now Burke's, and did like a few of the recipes from there. So it was cool that people then got to try recipes direct from the cookbook at a restaurant here. So they
looked so good.
Yeah.
The food. Because they're the ones on your YouTube as well, right? You do a lot of the cooking tutorials
I have a lot of
on YouTube.
The cooking tutorials on YouTube, and then
that's such a productive use of your time in COVID. So many people were just like sat at home doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been sat at home probably just no, I would have just been doing the same thing, like just creating content, creating recipes and things like that. But I was able to kind of do both, and then kind of use the cookbook as another vessel for creating content.
How long did it all take from start to finish, like to get to a finished article of your book?
Like 2 years,
wow.
I think. Yeah, it took a while.
Wow. From concept to launch, 2 years.
Yeah, just about.
And that's 2 years of you working on that pretty consistently.
Yeah. It even got delayed because of like there was a point where there was like supply chain issues, like they couldn't get the paper or something, so it got delayed. And so because it was delayed, I used that as an opportunity to make like a holiday ebook as well.
Wow.
So some of the holiday recipes are now on my blog, like on my website, because that was a free thing I gave away anyway. So yeah.
How hard do you work?
It varies by day. The past 2 days I've done very little work because I've just been like crying and moping about the state of the world. But but besides that, no, it really depends on the day. Like some days I'm literally going from like a workout to a taste, like a meeting, to a shoot at a restaurant, to an event, to an opening. So it really depends on the day, how stacked I've decided to make my day, how many things I decided to say yes to. And then I have days like on Sundays, generally, I don't even look at my phone. I completely disconnect. And me and my husband.
I won't message you on a Sunday.
Yeah. If you do, you'll get a response at like 9 p.m. And yeah, me and my husband will just literally sit on the couch, watch TV, and deliver every meal.
I love that. The grand slam on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, delivery.
Yeah.
Have you got any mentors in any areas of your life?
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely, I wouldn't say I have like direct mentors who I will like go to. Yeah, I think there's two things. There's people who I look up to and who I see as people who influence what I do, in whether it's through the restaurant or content or in those kinds of respects. So some of that is like restaurant owners who I made relationships with in New York, who I've seen, who now have restaurants that have been open for like 10, 12 years. In other cases, it's just content creators who I find really inspiring. And I use that as, guidance in terms of like what I think I should be doing. But I think direct mentors, I don't have as much. And I think I use my friends more as like a sounding board for things, or, getting advice and things like that.
I think that's interesting because for me, I'm a big fan of the use of mentors in different areas of life.
I probably should have one.
There you are, if anyone's listening. Yeah. But I was asking because you cover so many different areas of life.
Yeah.
You've got, you're an author, you're now an entrepreneur, business owner, content creator, chef.
Yeah.
There's so many different areas there where it's hard to be an expert in all these different areas of life, right? So sometimes you do need to ask for help, and there are people that have done it before you that have the path. But I guess by you speaking to having these relationships with restaurant owners, that is, you've gone from having a relationship with restaurant owners as a content creator to now owning your own restaurant. And that relationship is being really helpful because they've kind of laid the blueprint out, and you can see what their hard work and what their plan led to and success. And you can try and implement that in your restaurant, I guess. Yeah.
And also it's just nice to have someone to like bitch and moan with. So.
Isn't it, Jess? That's basically what the podcast is. It's just therapy. What's your dream?
Ooh. I think, I would really love to see Barkada in other cities. I think just keep spreading the dream, keep getting people to fall in love with Filipino food the way that I really love it. I mean, I'm literally wearing these earrings are actually the sun from the Filipino flag.
Love that.
So I'm always representing in some way, because I'm really, even though sadly I can't like speak the language, because my parents, when they immigrated, they wanted me to be American, which is like not my fault. But yeah, I always try to really represent. And I think that the Philippines, it's such a beautiful country, and we have such a rich culture, and it's so often Filipinos are treated as secondhand citizens. Like they really are, especially here in Hong Kong. It's insane to me, the fact that like Filipinos literally make society run here, and yet they're treated with such disrespect. So I think anything I can do to uplift the community and do my part to change some of those perspectives and get people to see them as human, be like, hey, I love your food. Like I actually have a lot of people who have come, they've brought their helpers for their birthday. And in a lot of those cases, that's their first time ever having Filipino food, because they never thought to ask their helper to make something for them. And then they try the food at our Barkada and they're like, oh, wow, that was good. Like, and then they'll then go, hey, I want to have adobo at home, right? So anything that I can do to create that action, is a success in my mind.
I love that. Do you see a restaurant opening in the Philippines?
I think it could happen, because I think that what's interesting is we do things, we have this approach of having both, right? We have the traditional food, And then we also do things that are unique that Filipinos maybe would never have had before. So, and even right now in Manila, there are restaurants that are doing this. They're putting their own twist on these traditional dishes. So I think that there is a place for it. We've had people reach out about it, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't think I have the time for that. Not yet. But I think that's we have the brand, we have the concept. We can always take it somewhere else.
Yeah, you've made a start. That's the most important part.
Yeah.
What's the one trait that you have as a person that you think has contributed the most to your success?
Ooh, interesting. Probably passion. I think that if you truly love something, work doesn't feel like work, right? And in a lot of these things, when you're sitting in a dark room at 2 a.m. editing a video, you gotta sometimes you question, you're like, why am I doing this? So I think that you have to really be passionate about whatever it is that you're doing to drive you to keep pushing and keep going to the next step. Because otherwise, like, why are you bothering, right? I think you can, yes, there's always money. You can always earn money off different things that you're doing. But for me personally, I think that passion has always been at the root of it.
Do you ever have moments like that where you're questioning yourself, your decisions?
Constantly, every day. Even every time I post something, like half of my post, I will like post it and then like delete it.
Really?
And then be like, oh shoot, I need to fix something. Not half.
It's actually very refreshing to hear because I've only just started really like 10 months ago, my content creation journey. And these thoughts creep in.
Oh, you're constantly
the self-doubt and
yourself.
second guessing. It's crazy.
And then you post something and Instagram goes like, that sucked. And you're like, damn, thanks. Like I spent days on this, but it's okay.
But even
you just got to keep going.
Yeah. Even someone like yourself who has obviously a very successful channel and business and restaurant, to still know that you have these thoughts as well.
I'm not immune to these things.
Honestly, for me, it's really refreshing to hear. It's really refreshing. So thank you for being vulnerable. How would you, Jen, like to be remembered?
Ooh, me. Oh my gosh, I've never thought about this. I think that I generally, I always want to, how would I want to be remembered? I think that, part of what I do and what I've touched on it before is that I feel like what I'm good at is bringing joy and happiness to other people's lives. Even like, let's put the blog and stuff aside, like most of my, I'm the one who's like dancing on tables and like pouring drinks in people's mouths and like doing things like that's just who I am. I am like a party girl at nature. So I think that that's generally just how I approach life, is that I do live it to the fullest in every aspect. And I think that, I want to hopefully have that impact on people where I am coming into their life and just making sure that everyone has a good time, honestly.
Said it before, I say it again. Everyone needs a friend like you, Jen. Yeah. Everyone needs a friend like you.
And that's the thing too, if you ever come, I always tell people, if you're coming to the restaurant, like, let me know. Even if I'm there, I'll try, because I literally live 5 minutes away from the restaurant, which is awesome. So if someone I know is there, I'll walk my dog because I have to do that anyway. So I'll walk my dog to the restaurant, say hi, try to send a little goodie to make your time there better. So yeah.
And as you know, the name of the podcast is Abnormal. Yeah. It is for normal people that want to do abnormal things, like the story you've just described over the last hour. What's the one bit of advice you would give to someone listening, looking to do something abnormal in their lives?
Just go for it. Honestly, the world is probably going to implode at some point pretty soon. Maybe, hopefully not too soon. So I think that I try to live life without any regrets. Like, even if things don't work out and it doesn't go as planned, at least I did it. At least I tried. I have that lesson I learned from it. So even if you're scared to do it, just go for it. Because, the worst thing that can happen, you have a cool story to tell about how you failed at something, right? Do it for the story. Do it for the plot.
I love such good advice. I love it. Well, Jen, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
I can tell how busy you are. I hope we can be a good distraction from everything that's gone on for you in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
But honestly, such a cool story. As you know, it's one that I've wanted to hear for a while now, since we started the podcast. And yeah, very, very inspiring, because it's a very relatable story. It wasn't born into success. It was, you've worked your ass off, you've done the traditional route, and now you're following your dreams and your passions and spreading joy and hope in the world. And it's really awesome for me to get to hear that live, and great to meet you in person. And I can tell, you're a very, very energetic person, and you are the friend that everyone needs and the person that is great to have in people's lives. So thank you for sharing your story and coming on the podcast.
Wow, that was really made me, that really did make my week. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Abnormal Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to on right now, as it really goes a long way to growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.